Yeah. So this is Brenda. She is a counselor and she works for a place called like EAP, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I know her because my mom has like these Zoom meetings now, and she is on the Zoom meetings, and it's like training for her work. So yeah, that's Brenda.
All set?
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. So hi, everybody. I know you're in there. I can't see you, but thankfully I can at least see Natalie. So I appreciate being asked to do this today. What I do is to me, it's a very interesting job. And I didn't start out being in the field of EAP as Natalie described. And I'll tell you what that means in a moment. But I started out just as a regular counselor, as a social worker. And over time, I just met some people that were working in this field and they introduced me to it. And pretty much it's been where I've spent most of my career, not all of it, but most of it. So first of all, I work for a company called Adirondack EAP. And we are located right in Glens Falls, right across from Crandall Park. We have a great view out the window. I can watch the skaters in the afternoon. And my job as an employee assist EAP, actually, it stands for Employee Assistance Professional. So sometimes when people hear employee assistance professional, they think that I help people find jobs. We occasionally get people calling and saying, I'm looking for a career. Can you help me? But that's not actually what we do. Employee assistance programs have been around now probably since the 30s. They kind of started out around the 1930s. And originally, they were mostly people who were trying to help coworkers who had alcohol issues and were having problems with drinking, and it was affecting their jobs. But over the years, it's grown and it's become a profession, and there are special certifications, and it has become its own entity, if you will. So what an employee assistance professional, an EAP, an employee assistance program, what we are is we're actually a benefit that businesses purchase our services. And we're there to help both the company as well as employees and their family members. So I guess first, let me just explain how we help the employee. And when I say it's a benefit, so for example, Natalie, your mom works for Warren County and they purchase our services. They have purchased us on a contractual agreement. We actually serve 60 different companies, approximately 60 in Saratoga, Warren, and Washington counties. And they're all kinds of businesses, everything from small businesses to major corporations in our area, and a lot of things in between. And so we are purchased as a benefit. The company or the business pays for our services based on a statistical projection that we do. And they pay for the services in advance. And what we are here for is to actually provide free, because they've prepaid for it, free counseling to anybody who works in that organization, as well as anybody who lives in their home. A family member can also use our services. In fact, people who live in the same household, even if they're not family, can use our benefit through EAP. And what we basically do is we provide short-term counseling for any employee and or their family regarding any personal issues or personal concerns that they may have. So I can give you an example. For example, today, I had someone call me and I was helping them deal with a loss, a very sudden and unexpected death of someone, a coworker and friend. And so that's been part of my day today is helping someone with that. We deal with issues that come up in a person's personal life, like family problems. Sometimes people call because they're going through a medical crisis and they're very upset about it and need to talk to someone. We deal with family members where there might be a drug or an alcohol concern. We help with any kind of personal issue, a marriage problem, raising children, helping take care of an aging parent. So pretty much any issue that someone might have in their regular day-to-day life that can happen to any one of us, That's what we help people with. And the reason that companies provide this benefit is that businesses recognize that sometimes our personal problems, our personal life problems can affect us in the workplace. And one of the ways it can affect us is people sometimes have to take extra time off from work to help deal with the situation at home, or they're coming to work and they're so distracted about what's going on in their personal life that they can't function properly, or they're not being able to concentrate the way they want to, or they're missing time, they're late to work. So companies recognizing that sometimes when people have personal issues that they affect the work, they also recognize that sometimes what happens at work affects home life. So for example, I've talked with people sometimes that work several shifts. They work rotating shifts, and that can affect their home life. It can be tough on the family when someone is not there on a regular basis. Sometimes work-related issues are, that they're having trouble with a boss or a supervisor, and they're coming home and they're stressed and they're angry and they're frustrated and they're kind of taking it out on the family. So whatever issues, and sometimes it's things like something serious happens in the workplace. I was very actively involved in EAP when 9/11 happened, when we had a strike at the World Trade Center. And so that really affected people at work, and we help deal with those kinds of crises as well. So it can be something that happens at work, or it can just be things that are brought into work from home, or things that come home to the family from work. It can be any of those kinds of issues. And the whole goal is to help people when they're having a difficult time, to have a resource that can help them or help a family member so that they can get back on track, and so that they can get some assistance and some support when they need it to continue functioning the way they want to. It costs companies a lot of money to retrain someone, to lose an employee and have to retrain them. And EAP is one of the safeguards against having people quit their job or get fired because they don't know what to do about an issue that's affecting them. And so we're a resource that they provide. So that's kind of in a nutshell what EAP is. I guess I'll just ask Natalie, I guess, is there anybody that has a question about that? Anything I can clarify?
So I know it costs the company money for their services, but did the employees have to pay for the service?
Somebody wants to know if, like, she knows that the company has to pay for the services, but does the employee themselves have to pay for the service?
No, they don't. When they come to us, we provide a set number of visits. So usually it's anywhere between 3 or 8 visits. Each company kind of agrees with how many sessions they want to provide and pay for. So the employee doesn't pay for any of the EAP services. But sometimes when people come to us, the problem requires services beyond what we can offer. So for example, if someone comes in with a very serious alcohol problem or a drug problem, that's not something we can handle alone because we don't have enough time to provide the services that they would need. So we would refer them to another resource in the community that could help them. And then that part of the service is covered under their healthcare coverage. And so they may be responsible for paying for part of those services. Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, so let me just explain a little bit about what's required in order to do what I do. First of all, you need a master's degree. If you're going to be a counselor, you need a master's degree. And there are a number of ways you can approach that. New York State requires a certain number of years of education, a certain number of years of experience after you get your degree, and then they will issue licensing, but you have to take an exam for that. So in New York State, I'm a licensed social worker. And that means that I have completed a master's degree in social work. It also means that I have fulfilled 2,000 hours of supervision with clients before I was eligible to even sit for that exam. I had to have supervised experience working with clients. And I also took the New York State licensure exam and passed it. So that is partly what's required. And you have to have that license has to be renewed every 3 years. And in order to renew it, I also have to take, I think it's quite a few. I want to say it's about 42 hours of continuing education. So throughout the year, I'm doing webinars and Zoom classes or attending a conference to continue to be educated and stay current on new things that are happening in our field or levels of expertise that I want to achieve. So I need to show that I have done all of that and prove all that in order to get my license every 3 years. So that's what's required. And then, as I mentioned, employee assistance programs have become very unique and very special service. And so there's also a credential to become a certified employee assistance professional. And that also requires a number of hours of supervision and training and all those good things and a test. And so that's renewable every so often as well. So those are some of the things that you need. The other thing, it's real interesting. When I started in the field of social work, I was just doing counseling. I worked in a substance abuse program. I worked at Saratoga Hospital on the inpatient psychiatric unit for a little while. I've done some different things, but I also took a break from counseling for a while and I went out and worked in the business world. I love interior decorating. And so for a while I sold office furniture and decided, when a friend of mine told me about EAP, I looked into a job and it actually was to my advantage that I had worked in the business world and had been selling office furniture. Because when I talked with the director of the EAP program, she said, everybody usually just has counseling background, but we want people who understand the business world too. So it's important in EAP that you understand what it's like to work in a business from the business perspective, as well as having the counseling background. It's not always required, but it's a benefit, it's a plus. And part of the reason for that is I mentioned what we do for employees, but what we do for the company, the employer, is a little different. So I have worked as a counselor. I'm going to just take a sip of water. Sorry, I was getting dry. So I've worked as a counselor, but I've also done something called account management in EAP. And in that role, and I still do these things here as well, but in that role, I was working more with the human resources people all the time and supervisors and managers. And they would call if they had a problem or a concern in the workplace. So I mentioned 9/11. I'm sorry. I mentioned 9/11. When that happened, people were devastated. And I actually was on a plane about 3 days after 9/11, flying to New Jersey to meet with a group of employees that watched one of the World Trade Centers come down from across the river in New Jersey. So we do a lot of what is called critical incident debriefings. So when there is a crisis that happens that affects people in the workplace, we would go out and meet with an entire team of people and help them process what had just happened, help them cope with it, help them deal with it, and understand what might to expect afterward. I've had to do that on a number of occasions. Sometimes it's been because there's been a sudden unexpected death in a workplace or a workplace accident. There's all different kinds of reasons why we go out to the company. The other part of my job that I actually, and I love it because it's very diverse. I get to do a lot of different things. And you're helping people, and you know that sometimes we've turned people's lives around for the better, and that's very rewarding, very fulfilling. The other part of it too, though, is that we're there, like there was also a period of time many years back when I was earlier in my career, that we went through a lot of companies downsizing and laying people off. And we would go into the workplace in those situations and help management prepare for how they were going to tell employees about downsizing or layoffs. We would meet with the employees and help them process the news. And very often they were very angry and upset. And so we'd have to de-escalate kind of that situation and help people get calmed down. So we're helping the workplace, but we're also helping employees. So it's both and. And so that's why it's so important in this role that you understand what goes on in an organization and how organizations function, and how relationships in the organization can impact people, but you also need to understand individuals and what happens in their personal lives and how to help them deal with struggles that come up in their own lives as well. So it's an exciting field. It's a field that is constantly changing. I can walk in the door some mornings and I think I've got my day planned, and we get a phone call and the whole day can change in a few moments. And we have to kind of regroup and do something different. So you have to be flexible and you have to be ready to kind of jump at any moment. There was a company I worked for in Wisconsin. I lived out there for 10 years and I worked for a national EAP out there. And we literally used to keep a business suit on the back of our door. We called them our super person suits. So if I came to work in pants and a sweater, if I got called out to go deal with a business or a corporation, I would put my business suit on and jump in the car or fly on a plane and head to wherever I needed to go. So that can be the nature of the job as well. And the other piece that I get to do a lot of is, and you mentioned this, Natalie, for your mom, we've been doing some training. So I actually write and create training programs for businesses. I train on a variety of different topics, everything from stress in the workplace, preventing violence in the workplace, managing employee problems, all kinds of stuff. So we do a lot of training and teaching as well. So it's a job of many hats. If you like variety, if you like to be challenged and not know what to expect moment to moment, it can be a really good field. And if you also just like helping people and genuinely care about seeing people's lives change for the better, it's a really great field. So I guess those are some of the benefits about the work. One of the nice things about being in my field, there are lots of different kinds of employee assistance programs. It's just like heading health insurance, and then you have CDPHP, MVP, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Well, EAP is a heading. It's a title for a type of service. But there are some EAPs that are telephonic only. And so people call in an 800 call center and they only talk on the phone. And then most of the EAPs I've been connected with, we do live counseling face-to-face on the phone or Zoom. But we also, we don't just farm people out, we do the services ourselves. So there's different kinds of EAPs. But because of the kind I've worked in, I've always had my own private office, which is really nice. You have your own space where you meet with people and can talk privately. The other thing is I work alone, but I also work with a team, and I have great colleagues and we get along really well and we share our concerns and help one another when we need to. So those are that's kind of the work environment. Some of the benefits are, as I said, I think for me, the biggest one is knowing that you made a difference in someone's life, that hopefully after you've helped them, and we have literally had people tell us that we have saved their lives. So it's a very rewarding feeling. And then we get the regular kind of benefits you get with a job, like health insurance and vacations and additional educational monies to help with the education that's required. Our travel is reimbursed if we have to travel. I don't have to pay for that myself. It's all covered. So there are professional associations that I can belong to. I'm part of the Northeastern New York Employee Assistance Professional Association. And that's people in our community that are doing what we do, and we help encourage and support each other. I also am a member of a national employee assistance program as well. And locally, I participate in the Adirondack Human Resource Association because we're frequently working with HR people. Those are some of the organizations I'm currently involved in. There's also a National Association of Social Workers, and I'm a member of that as well. And I guess I would say, well, let me just stop and see if there's any more questions again before I just talk about the best and worst part of the job.
COVID has changed the way she's interacting with patients.
Somebody wants to know how COVID has like changed the way that you interact with your patients and clients.
Okay, great question. It's changed it a lot. We were seeing people one-on-one, face-to-face. They would come into my office and sit down, and I was talking to people every day, face-to-face, in person. Since March, really since March, we have not seen people face to face. We're doing everything on the phone or like this, a Zoom meeting. So that was something I had to learn how to do. I had not been doing Zoom. A lot of us hadn't been. So we had to quickly get up to speed and set all the services up so that we could do it that way. That's one of the major ways it's changed. I would say another big change has been the kind of calls that we've been getting. People are calling more in crisis than before COVID. People are calling and they're really having sometimes a very hard time, struggling with. A lot of people call because they're very anxious right now, worried, and are struggling with that. Some people, it's put a strain on their family and on their relationships. So many people have had to make shifts and juggle things. We've had people calling with financial issues and worries more than normal. So the volume has changed and the intensity of the concerns have changed a lot. And our response is different. Just before I got on this call, I had an email from a client saying, I'm having a panic attack. Can you please call me? And so just before I came on Zoom, I was responding and helping someone get them calm down and feel better. So yeah, that's one of the ways, some of the ways it's changed.
Does she feel like there's been an increase in alcoholism?
Do you feel like there's been an increase in specifically like alcoholism throughout this?
Yeah, we've actually, some of the things that we're seeing have increased are substance use and misuse. Substance abuse has changed. A lot of people are using more alcohol. Addictions are on the rise. And unfortunately, so have overdose related deaths been rising. There have in some groups been increase in suicide as well. We have heard about, we're not experiencing that quite as much in our office directly, but it is definitely on the rise. Other issues that have risen through COVID have been domestic violence has risen considerably. So yes, there have been some very serious changes, and also people struggling with finances and loss of employment. Those issues have been very much increased.
Now, do you have really the professional organizations yet? So you didn't get the New York State one or national?
Some people didn't get down the some of the professional organizations that you belong to.
Sure, I can repeat them. So the one would be abbreviated NE for Northeast, Northeast New York, NY, and EAPA, so Employee Assistance Professional Association. That's one of the professional organizations I belong to. And so that's just for our region. That's in the Capital District, North and South. It's mostly for the Northeastern New York area. But then there's the same thing for the national. There's a national EAP association. And then I also mentioned Adirondack Human Resource Association. And I think the other one that I mentioned was the National Social Workers Association. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Anything else?
Just the worst part about your job and the best.
Got it. Okay. So the worst part about my job is we do have to be on call. We're a small office. There's only 3 counselors and we have a receptionist. So the 3 of us in the office that are counselors here, we rotate what's called on call, which means once or twice a month, depending on the month. That means that after 5 o'clock, I'm carrying a cell phone with me. And if we get an emergency call that comes in on the machine, I'm having to respond to that 24/7. So in the middle of the night, I could have to call somebody and help them out. That's the hardest part, I would say, because you just have to be on and you don't know when you might get a call in the middle of the night. But I will also say, thankfully, we don't get too many of those. So fortunately, I'm not up most of the nights, but that is one of the downsides for me. And I would say all my coworkers agree with that. We all don't really love that part. the best part of the job, and I think I've already touched on it. Well, let me just say the one that's probably a little less obvious, but I really thrive on, for me personally, I really thrive on the various hats that I get to wear, the various things that I get to do in the job. So one of the best parts for me about this job is there's a lot of variety. There are different kinds of challenges. I get to work with people on a one-on-one level, but I also love going into an organization and helping them deal with major issues in the business world also. So for me, it's the versatility, the variety of the job, and the challenges that sometimes come with it. Um, if you're someone who loves learning, it is a career where you will be a lifelong learner. You will always be learning new things, partly because you have to, but also just because for the sheer joy of learning new things. So that's another part that I really enjoy. And then the last, and it's probably the best, of course, but the last thing is, I mean, literally, we have had people come in here that were, this just happened within the last month or two. I was working with a young man for a few months that was on the verge of losing his job. He had been using drugs and alcohol. It was affecting his work. It had completely uprooted his personal family life. And we got him to get some help. He was referred for some outpatient counseling. And through the help of the outpatient counselor, he finally agreed to go away for some help and take some time to get treatment. And the other day we were chatting, he called to tell me he was back in the region and that he was doing well. And I was talking with a counselor that helped refer him into treatment. And she said, and I could hear it too, she said, this is like talking to a different person. He's a completely different person. And he's feeling good. He feels like his whole life is starting to turn around. And so that is absolutely the best. We truly do see people's lives change for the better. And there's nothing better than that. Okay.
Mhm.
So, and any other closing questions?
Now, we can ask her where she went to college.
Where did you go to college?
Okay, sure. Well, I'm from the region, so I started out at the College of St. Rose, and they have an undergraduate social work program, and that's what I did. I went there for the undergraduate social work program and got my bachelor's in social work. And then I worked for a couple of years, decided to go back to school, and I got my master's degree at SUNY Albany. So they also have a good program there as well. So it's possible to do it locally. I mean, there's a lot of schools that are out of the area, but it is possible to get everything you need in New York and in the Albany area.
Now, that you ask her someone who might be interested in this field, like you, what characteristics or qualities would be good for you to have?
If somebody were interested in doing this sort of job, what characteristics or qualities would they have to have?
Oh boy. Let's see. Well, first of all, you have to be a good listener. I know I've been doing a lot of talking today, but usually I'm doing more listening. And you have to like people, really, really, really like people, all kinds of people. It's also important that you can, I guess the word boundaries comes to mind, but you have to know that there are some times when we can't rescue people. I can't save anybody. If someone doesn't want help, there's really very little I can do to make somebody get help. And so you have to recognize that you can't always make everything better for everybody. You can't always make things right for everyone the way they would like them to be. So that's important. I think you also have to be someone, the interesting thing about being a counselor is you don't always know the outcome. There are a lot of people that I've worked in my life with, and you help them for a while and you see some change and you hope that things are better. But a lot of times we don't know really how things turn out for people. So if you need to know the end result and you need to know the finish line, that's probably not the career for you, because a lot of times you're not going to know the outcome. You're just going to know that hopefully things are better. So that's a part of it too. And sometimes people come back and say thank you, and many times they do not, which is fine. Again, it's just knowing that If you're someone who needs to have a sense of closure or needs to know how things turn out, or that you've completed doing something and you know the outcome, social work is not like that. Sometimes you do, but many times you don't. And I would say, as I mentioned, I think you have to be willing to be a learner, and lifelong learning is a part of this field. And I think the greatest thing is respecting people for where they are, and knowing that most people are doing the best they know how to do in any given situation, that sometimes they just need someone to listen, or someone to give them an idea that they never thought of before, and to just genuinely care. Okay?
Mhm.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys. It was fun. And if anybody ever has more questions, feel free to have them email me or call. I'd be happy to talk to someone.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye, guys.